Thank you to EA for sending over a copy of the game. Much appreciated. Now let's get on to the review. The Dead Space Remake certainly had a lot of hype around it, especially after the disappointment of Callisto Protocol. Could EA Motive pull something off? Could they do something, or was it all for nothing? I can gladly say that they absolutely nailed it. It's one of the most phenomenal remakes that I have ever played. It does absolute justice to the 2008 version of the game, updates so many different systems, the graphics, everything like that. Let's talk about the Dead Space remake. Dead Space puts you in the boots of Isaac Clarke, an everyman engineer on a routine mission to fix a gigantic mining starship. Where have we seen this one before? The USG Ishimura is our spaceship, but you quickly find out that it is a living nightmare. As you play through the game, you uncover what caused everything. The plot is almost pretty much the same as the 2008 original, with some narrative changes to line up with more lore, and also there's a fully voiced Isaac this time round, which means that it adds a new level of dynamic to the narrative. It's worth mentioning that this game is not just an upscaled remaster. They built the game from the ground up. EA Motive went through and put it all into the Frostbite engine, every asset. They essentially rebuilt the whole game. But here's the thing, it's not just a visual upgrade. They added in so much work here. It's phenomenal the amount of things they added. An upgrade system. They updated the graphics, obviously. They have an enemy intensity director, which essentially enhances your experience. Say, every time you go through a different corridor or you visit a different part of the spaceship, it will determine how it wants to mess with you. For example, you could go into a side room, an event that you expect an enemy to come out of just decides to start whirring up out of nowhere and then break, and then nothing happens, and you just kind of like shit yourself a little bit. To give a brief overview of the plot, it's pretty much the same as the 2008 original. I didn't play too much of it back in the day. I was around about 12. Damn your 12-year-old me that only played 3 hours of this game, because a lot of people talk very highly about Dead Space. And essentially, you go around the Ishimura, find what's happening, fight necromorphs, all this stuff. But the thing that I loved so much about it is you could go through for new players and people that hadn't really played the full game before and look at all the text logs, the audio logs. Even you could look at the environmental storytelling where they put stuff on the walls, cut off their limbs, written in blood, like Sharpie stuff. All of that is amazing. And then there's the small narrative changes as well that I've heard from people. I didn't obviously notice it because I've not played the original, but it makes them engaging and it's overall an immersive experience. Let's talk about the Ishimura and the level design, because the visual upgrade here is I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic to see just the way that the levels changed and became different when you went back to them again later on in the story. The other thing that they really did well, combining with the intensity director that I spoke about before, is the sounds and the scares. There's not the typical scares that you would usually see in this game, but the sound design makes you think that something's going to jump out and get you. You can hear things scutting around. You can hear pipes doing things. When you go out into zero space, everything's muffled as well, because obviously in vacuum of space, you can't hear anything. No one can hear you scream. Let's talk about gameplay, because gameplay is arguably going to be one of my favorite things about this game. First of all, it feels tight, it feels claustrophobic, and there's a hell of a lot of variety in weapons. You've got a variety, I think there's 8 altogether. There's like a flamethrower, there's a radiation beam, or like a rail cannon type thing. There's the trusty plasma cutter. There's also your pulse rifle, and then there's a couple of other ones. The Ripper is actually really cool as well. It's essentially just fires short saw blades out, which I really liked. And it was gory, it was visceral, and the thing is, the craziest thing about combat is it's literally cut off limbs. Cut off the enemy's limbs, and you can do this with a variety of different of the weapons, but there's this cool peeling system where the more damage you do to enemies, the more skin will come off them, flesh will come off them, adding to the gore factor of the game, and it means that you'll be able to eventually get down to the bone, and then it means that you can rip things apart. There's also a great use of kinetic moves where you can grab stuff, throw it at enemies. There's also stasis, so you can freeze people in place or like slow them down and then be able to dissect them in the way that you want. And then another great thing that I loved about this was the upgrade system. I didn't mess around with it too much, where you could reveal more if you went and explored, but also on top of that, if you reset and respec, you could make things super powerful. But I didn't really do too much of that. Maybe in a New Game Plus playthrough in the future. The only caveat, which I suppose is the same as the previous game, is I wish there was some form of dodge, but I suppose it did play into the factor of having your back against the wall at times, especially when coming up against a lot of necromorphs. Now let's talk about the fun factor. The fun factor is something that I like to find in games, and something that specifically I talk about in my reviews, because I don't really have anything bad to say about this. There was one section of the game later on in the game, which I won't really spoil, but it kind of was a little bit tedious, but then the set piece kind of played out, and then the end of the chapter was pretty good. But the fun factor for me was it changed the way that I thought when I played the game. The visuals just was so good to add to that, the sound design as well. And the reason why I say it changed the way that I thought was because I would be checking corners to see if there was going to be an enemy that comes out. I was going to be checking vents. I was prepared every single time I went into an encounter. And then the intensity director was like, nah. I remember distinctly in my first 20 minutes of the game, I went up to a console to push a button, and instantly a necromorph came from behind me, and I was like, oh, damn, I've just jumped out of my skin. Get into combat. Now we come to the is it worth it period of the video, or the reviews that I want to start implementing, which is the pricing of the game and the playtime that I had with it. First of all, the pricing is £60 for the deluxe edition and $50 for the normal one. The deluxe gets you just a couple of skins and such. I'm not too sure if it gets you anything else. And there's obviously the £50 version. I think that's the same in dollars as well. I'm not entirely sure how that conversion rate goes. And the playtime was between 8 and 15 hours. If I had explored a little bit more when I was playing, I probably would have gone and got that playthrough up to 12, maybe 15 hours. And then also on top of that, you can go into New Game Plus, which means you're going to be able to play the game again and have even more hours in the game. So that's like an additional 15 or whatever. So would I say it's worth the price? Sadly, the way I think of things, I don't necessarily think it's worth the £60 that you would pay for it, or the full price. But I would say, yeah, if you're really interested in this genre, then definitely pick it up. If you want to get this at a lowered price, maybe when it goes on sale, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. This is one of the best remakes I've played, and it's going to be one that I will have on my list at the end of the year as one of my game of the year type games. It won't obviously win game of the year depending on what else is out, but yeah, I definitely think it's worth the price for sure. But if I was going to say to someone that, like, are you going to jump in this with all the other games coming out? Wait for a sale, wait for it to drop down maybe on Steam or something, and then pick this up. Final summary. EA Motive did not disappoint. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with the playthrough. It could have been, one of the best remakes. I still can't get over how good it was. I've played Resi 2. I've also played Resi 3's remake and a couple other ones but this isn't just a remake. This is a full remake. The entire game is in the Frostbite engine. It's not just a remaster, upscaled. I've played a couple of those. No, full remake of the game. I love the difficulty. I love the enemies. I love the combat. It was tight. I just loved the space feel. And I am not usually a survival horror guy. I try to avoid those games. But Dead Space, I make that exception. And I am pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed this as much as I did. And it's faithful, but enough to be distinct. And that is why I think you should go and play the Dead Space Remake. Thank you for watching my full thoughts and review. If you've come over here from the short, once again, thank you very much. Make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe if you are new, and turn on the notification bell. As always, I'm going to be doing these types of videos on more single-player games. I won't do them all the time, but I'm trying to incorporate shorts and do more videos like this. And if you have enjoyed this video, thank you very much. If you played the original Dead Space and you plan on playing this, leave a comment down in the comment section and tell me. As always, this has been Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time.